You've raised over 300 million for charities.
You know, you're often told that you have to choose between making money and helping people, and we think that's a false choice.
And you do it in a very unique way.
The thing that put us on the map was Breaking Bad. We would have been out of business if it weren't for Breaking Bad. Literally like 2 months of cash left when we got Bryan Cranston.
Is he as fucking cool as he seems?
He's so cool. And all of a sudden he was just there, and I was like, is that Warren Buffett? It was tough because you're constantly having to get the Pope or Arnold Schwarzenegger or Messi or whatever, like try to do stuff.
The Pope, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Messi, whatever.
I know, I'm such a name dropper.
What did you learn about literally dying?
I mean, I had a near-death experience. I flatlined for 4.5 minutes.
Bloody hell. Today on the show, we're talking to Matthew Pohlson, the co-founder and CEO of Omaze, about a fundamental tension in business: the perceived choice between making money and making impact.
Matthew has built Omaze, which is an enormous company that's raised over $300 million for charities worldwide. But here's the twist.
Instead of traditional fundraising, Omaze created an entertainment company that gives away dream prizes, from luxury cars to incredible celebrity experiences.
And it's the perfect win-win business. The company grows, charities receive more funding, and participants get the chance to win life-changing prizes.
If you're building a business and trying to figure out how to align profit with purpose, or you just want to hear some great stories, this episode is perfect for you. Make sure you subscribe so you never miss an episode where we get inside the greatest minds and the greatest moments in business.
Without further ado, here's our conversation with Matthew Pohlson of Omaze.
Matt, welcome to Secret Leaders.
Thank you for having me, Chris.
So, Matt, you've built something extraordinary with Omaze. Like, it's a company that makes a huge amount of money. You've raised over 300 million for charities, and you do it in a very unique way. You're giving away to people the whole time. You still manage to make a profit. But I wanted to start somewhere slightly different. I wanted to start with, what did you learn about literally dying?
What I learned about dying? I learned it's,
By the way, not a question we ask everyone.
Yes.
That's our first question normally.
Yeah, that's a good. I mean, I had a near-death experience. I flatlined for 4.5 minutes, and I was on the other side. I had a come back to the light type experience, and what I learned from that was, it made me believe in a lot of things I didn't believe before. It made me believe in the power of love. That's actually I now believe that's essentially like the fundamental substrate where all energy is connected. And I felt an experience of that on the other side, where your ego dissolves, time dissolves, and you just feel like you're a drop in the ocean and the entire ocean. And that was good. That was good to feel that. That was very affirming of, I have a lot less fear of death now.
Wow.
What's the difference between that and a really strong psychedelic trip?
I've never done a super strong psychedelic trip, so I can't totally compare that. I've heard people describe, like, if they've done DMT or whatever, and they come back to that. I think this information is around us at all times, and our brains, and this isn't me, this is known, you would probably know better than me, like, our life becomes so focused on the things that we think are going to make us survive that we just kind of reticularly constrain the information around us, right? And so therefore you're taking in way less information. When you do a psychedelic, it opens up your prefrontal cortex, and you can hear and perceive information that you wouldn't otherwise, right? And it's just like, it happens if we're in a relaxed state, we're taking away more, we hear music better, whatever. If we're focused, like looking at our screens, like we're shut off to a lot of what's out in the world. So I think psychedelics open you up to information that is always there, but you wouldn't necessarily perceive. And I think that's kind of what was happening with me in the other side.
How did it happen?
I was born with my stomach twisted in a knot. I was supposed to die when I was born.
Oh.
And then the scar tissue from that surgery like freakishly broke off all these years later, and it created a bowel obstruction. And I didn't know it at the time. I just, like, my stomach was just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And like, I looked like 3 months pregnant.
Over days or?
Yeah, over like 3 days. I went from like 3 months pregnant to 6 months pregnant to
God.
9. My stomach had always hurt throughout my life, so I just was like used to dealing with that. But then at some point I was like,
Oh.
this is very uncomfortable. So I called my friend who's a doctor and said, I'm throwing a party tonight. There's this girl coming I'm really excited about. Do I have to, do I have to do something about this? He's like, yeah, you should go to the hospital. So I went to the hospital. They did all these tests. They didn't know what was going on. They then, after a couple hours, said to my parents, and then our COO had also come because I was supposed to meet her. They said to my parents, and her name is Helen, like, you guys go home. We're going to keep him overnight. And if he's not better by the morning, then we'll do surgery then. So Helen drives home to her house, pulls into her driveway. It's midnight, and she's exhausted. She's been at the hospital all day, and she's going to get out of the car, and something tells her to go back to the hospital. And she's British and a COO and very serious. She's not like a Venice Beach, like listen to the cosmos type person. Like this was not normal for her, but the voice was undeniable. And she drove back, and if she hadn't driven back, I would have died like 45 minutes later.
Really? Why? Why about her driving back?
She came in, and my heart rate had plummeted, and the machines had not alerted the nurse. And so she came in, and her grandmother had been in the hospital, so she knew how to read the machines, and she saw that my blood pressure was dangerously low.
Oh, that's amazing.
Bloody hell.
Yeah. And so she went and got the nurse, and the nurse like, that can't be right. He wouldn't be getting oxygen to his brain. So they did another test, got the same results. They called in the doctor. She took one look and like called in a crash team and rushed me down into surgery. And then they came out of surgery, and they said to my mom, look, the good news is we figured out what's going on. It's a bowel obstruction. The bad news is his heart rate is continuing to plummet. We don't know why, and he's in critical condition. So a couple hours pass. My mom goes downstairs to get my dad and my brother, and she's coming back up the elevator, and she hears on the loudspeaker code blue in room 437. And my mom works in a hospital, so she knows that means flatline, and she knows that's my room. So she gets out of the elevator. She starts running out in the hall. She gets to the door, and the nurse says, I'm sorry, you can't come in. This is really serious. And she says, look, I was there when he came into this world. If he's leaving this world right now, I'm going to be in that room. So they let her in the room, and I'm flatlined on the table, and they're doing the
Paddles.
I can never remember that word. Paddle. Yeah, defibrillator. They're doing the defibrillator.
Well, you weren't conscious at the time, so yeah.
Yeah, it makes complete sense. Yeah. And they're zapping me, and my body's bouncing up and down, but I'm not responding. I'm totally flatlined. And so my mom starts to crumble. It's one thing to lose a child. It's another thing if it's happening a foot in front of you. And at the same time, my brother was outside with my dad, and this doctor came out and said to another doctor in front of my brother, not knowing it was my brother, like, hey, we lost this guy. I think he's gone. And so my brother pushed my dad in the room, and my mom was faced this way towards me, and my dad kind of came in from her left, and he was crying so loudly because he thought I was gone, and that she turned around and said, Gary, you gotta quiet, or they're gonna kick us out of this room, And when she turned, she said she saw something that just like transformed her. She said all these people, these doctors, these nurses, these staff members had gravitated outside the window, and there was like 40 of them. She said they looked like this silent church choir just sending in positive energy. And she was so moved that these people that didn't even know her son were sending in love, that it was this like transformational experience for her. It just like filled her up with strength. And she took a deep breath, and she turned back, and she just started coaching me. She was like, Matthew David Pohlson, these people are fighting to save your life, but you are not fighting hard enough. You need to fight harder, Matthew David Pohlson. You need to fight to come back to us. And they said it was this really surreal experience to watch, because here's this, 65-year-old mom in an operating room. Like, that's never the case on like Grey's Anatomy or something. And the flatline went on for 4.5 minutes.
Wow.
And they don't usually fight that long. But because she was fighting, they kept fighting. And then at one point, she started to think like, this has gone on too long, and like I'm gonna lose my son, and if I lose my son, my husband's probably gonna die of a broken heart. And as she went there, the main doctor kind of like shook his head as to say, this is like done. He started to like pull away, And she grabbed him by the arm. She said, please don't call it yet. And then he turned back and he said, wait a second. And they're all just watching the flatline machine like go along, waiting to see if it'll tick up. And then they said they saw something they'd never seen before in a hospital. Instead of it ticking up out of nowhere, I just popped up.
From the table?
Yeah. And opened my eyes. And like literally came up awake. And then all of a sudden I looked and I see all these people staring at me, the choir. I just see all these people I don't know looking at me. And then I finally like saw, and they're like, their faces were in shock. They were like, and then I saw my mom, and I just kind of like lifted my right arm and like went like that and gave a thumbs up.
And the doctor said that was the most extraordinary experience.
Well, then there was 2 more days of like crazy stuff where I was supposed to die for 2 more days. Like all this other stuff happened. Yeah.
Bloody hell.
That's amazing. Feels like, so I'm interested because you've obviously told the story before a handful of times, but you get goosebumps listening to it. Do you get emotional anymore telling it?
I do. I just got emotional there. I haven't told it for a while. It takes you back there. Like the heroism of my mom, like I didn't really, like everyone's like, oh, that must have been so hard. Like I didn't really go through it. Like I was, like she had to go through, my dad had to go through like the idea they were going to lose their son. And there was 2 more days of where I was going to die, and all this other crazy stuff happened. And I just think of like what, like you guys are parents, like what that must have felt like. And that's where I get emotional. And her courage, she summoned some kind of power that was like, she's like, I didn't have what I was able to do during that time. Like, I don't know where that strength came from. I didn't know I had it.
And it's incredible. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
So you can totally, I guess, see, you're working in this sort of actually meaningful and purposeful space. But I guess what I'm hearing from you, I don't want to put these words in your mouth, like, let me know if this is right or not quite how it happened, but you are doing something purposeful and meaningful, but it doesn't necessarily feel completely like the most powerful and most natural way that you can amplify this cause.
Exactly. Yeah, I just realized like that we were never going to, like when I asked the doctor what his explanation for how they saved me, he's like, we're inspired by your mom. Like before the second surgery, she was grabbing the doctors by the cheeks, looking into their eyes saying, this is my son, but today this is your son, and this is your brother, and their company's trying to do good, and you need to help them. He's like, so we were motivated by that, but outside of that, there are much larger forces at play. And I said, well, as a man of science, like, how do you define larger forces? And he said it was love, and it was optimism that saved you. So then, like after that, I was like, how do I put as much of that out in the world as possible? And it was clear that doing celebrities was never going to be truly world changing. We didn't control our supply. We could so there was a limit to like how big that was going to be. And that
also makes sense.
That was the moment.
And how long had you been, like, how old were you? Like, how long had you been doing the business?
I was 40 years old. I'd been doing the business for 6 years. And then after that, we changed and went from celebrities to now we do houses.
So you come out of that experience and you go back to the team, you go back to your investors and you say, guys, A, here's this crazy story, but B, I feel like there's a pivot here. I feel like there's something that we can do. We need to change our strategy, and this is why. And the reason is love. Were they not all like, dude, like, we know you're in a hospital in California, but please just fuck off. We've got venture capitalists here.
I've had VCs from California on my boards before. Like
they don't care about love.
We're changing because of love, guys.
Yeah, but what's the term of love?
Yeah, exactly.
What's the term of love?
Quite big.
It's quite big.
It's pretty big. It's pretty big.
It worked out for Tinder.
Yeah.
And so you just spoke about the, I suppose, psychological change that you went through afterwards in terms of, I feel it's coming across as if you feel lighter in life. You feel more connected. And so how has that manifested itself in your life?
Yeah, I do feel like it took me a while to get there. I like almost was depressed for a while about it because like you have all these people who are like, you know, you've been on the side, like what's the insight, or like, you know, you're here for a reason now, like because there's this whole crazy story of how they saved me, and so but after a while I got to the point where I learned, and this sounds like I can't say this without sounding cheesy, but I learned what it means to actually love yourself more. That was the first thing. I wasn't doing that before. I was like, you know, I was very ego driven, not in like I was never like an asshole. Am I allowed to say that on the show? Okay.
So what you want?
It's England.
Yeah, it's English. Yeah. I was never like
No holds barred.
I was always like a kind person, but I wasn't kind to myself. Like I would always really worry about what other people thought of me. I would compare myself to people all the time, and then just go into that loop of like, you're not enough. And I really did that.
And you're in LA, so that's a very difficult place to be.
Exactly. Yeah. And I just didn't really understand that. Like I didn't understand like what I was saying to myself. And then I actually did this thing called the Hoffman process, which is like, you guys know that, yeah, where you go off the grid for 7 days, you know, your phone and like books or any music, and it's a pretty intense process. And in that there was a moment where they said something like, do you ever hold grudges? And I said, no, I always forgive people. They're like, yeah, but do you ever hold grudges against yourself? And I was like, there's shit I have forgiven myself that I did like 10 years ago, you know? And that just like opened up a whole new thing. I'm like, God, I do not treat myself internally the way that I treat others. And that whole near-death experience triggered that. And then now as a result, I think I'm able to, I share love more, I spread love more. I send messages, like whenever I think of somebody, I'll like send them a little video, be like, hey, I'm thinking of you, and this is why I'm so grateful to have you in my life, you know? And I just try to spread that as much as I can.
Wow.
It's amazing because it sounds like which to be fair is similar to a psychedelic trip, that it can give you insight and it can totally change your life and change your mind. But Monday morning comes and you still have to do some behaviors and you still have to make some changes and you still have to do the things. Otherwise, you know, you had some insight and then you can just choose to not act on it. And so this sounds really similar in the sense that, yeah, the near-death experiment changed your life, but you chose, you know, then as a series of choices, choosing to do Hoffman process is a big step. And then after that, it creates another big step and another big step, and it sets you in a direction. So it's more like, you know, an amazing door that opens for you, but you still have to like walk through it and still take loads of steps in that direction as well to continue it.
That's a great point. I think we think that there's these moments in our life that are before and after. We love the story of that, you know, and near-death experience is almost like the quintessential version of that. You must be different on the other side.
Yeah, but there's a lot of pressure on you. Right, because it's rare. A lot of people have done psychedelics. Not many people have done a near-death experience. So people are like, "So what did you feel?"
Yeah,
like,
where's your enlightenment?
Yeah,
but you're right.
Where's your halo?
Yeah, exactly. All it is it just became an excuse to be curious and like start a daily practice, and that's the actual life change.
Yeah.
The moment itself isn't, and it was just, you know, we're all just looking for these reasons to start afresh, but it could start tomorrow. Right? You could it could be the psychedelic experience. It could be like, you know what? I listen to out of your pocket. It could be a book. Yeah.
So you would recommend to everyone do the Hoffman experience?
100%. Most life-changing experience of my life.
For someone, I mean, I'm not as, you know, into this stuff as much as Dan is, and so I don't actually know what that is.
Yeah, do you want to explain what the Hoffman process is?
Yeah. So it's one of those things when I explain it, I can never truly capture like what makes it amazing, but I think it's truly a work of genius that so they do it in California, Connecticut, there's one here, and you basically you go there and there's basically 4 stages. You kind of identify the patterns that you have in your life that cause suffering, basically. One of mine was like the constant feeling of like, I'm not enough, you know, like I'm not worthy of this room. I'm not worthy to be on this podcast. I'm not like that kind of imposter syndrome. But I had others too. Anyway, so you identify your patterns and then you process through those. And a lot of it comes from your parents. And so it's like processing through that relationship with your parents, making a recognition of they were doing the best that they could, the recognition with their parents. And so you kind of go through all that, you identify it. And then there's like this whole pretty intense like physical process of like working through and letting those out and kind of forgiving that. And then you go through some other processes where you're rewiring your brain to like develop new patterns, and it totally changes you. It's because if you think about it, you're there for 8 days. You're there with 30 other people. Everyone's going through their own kind of intense process, and it breaks you down for a couple days. And
It's like a Tony Robbins, but like a much more practical, real thing.
Yeah, it's. I mean, people leave; they don't make it through. But everybody who comes out the other side is like different.
Yeah.
And the class is amazing. It's people, you have like super famous tech CEOs or celebrities, you have kindergarten teachers, you have flight attendants, you have, but when you're there, like no one knows each other's name. You do your childhood name. Like, so my childhood name was Tiger. So everyone
Tiger.
thought my name was Tiger, but like, it's
Good name.
Managing international money used to drive me crazy until I found Wise Business, the account for doing business in other currencies. I can hold money in different currencies and only convert when the rates are good. No more rushing to exchange at bad rates or losing money on outrageous fees. And my team handles all the payments themselves. I don't have to micromanage anything. They have their own logins, set their own limits, and I just keep an eye on things from my phone. One simple account lets you pay and get paid in over 40 currencies. There's no hidden fees, no marked up exchange rates, and it connects right to your accounting software. Whether you're paying vendors or suppliers in Europe or you're getting paid from Australia, it's all just easy. And that's what I love about Wise. It just takes this complicated thing and it makes it really simple. Your money's always secure with 24/7 protection, and you can see exactly where everything is in real time. To learn more about how you can use Wise Business to save time, money, and stress, visit wise.com/business.
Yeah, 2 days into it, I was like, this is so dumb. And I'm so mad at the person who sent me there. These people have no idea what they're doing. And then by day 3, I was like, these people know exactly what they're doing. And it's like, I don't want to give away too much more, but there's a lot of like the way that they reinforce the loop and they arrange it. It's like none of the stuff you hear is like, oh, I've never heard that before. But the way they arrange it and reinforce it, it sticks with you. It gets like into your subconscious. And so now those patterns still pop up. I still like have the, oh, you're not enough thing, but I move through it so much faster now. And it was truly life-changing. I sent my sister, I've sent a bunch of friends, and they've all had that experience.
Wow.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
I really want to go.
Do you?
Do it.
I do. I mean, that's like a full ad.
The thing is, you're not someone who, I wouldn't say, right? Because back to our chat just before this.
Well, most people want to empty it is up here.
Well, most people want to get to where Chris is. It's just like accidentally present all the time.
Well,
The mindless mindful.
yeah.
It's not that you're empty, but like
it's more like ignorance rather than like enlightenment.
Yeah.
Chris does not have any clue what's going on right now.
You totally don't have.
Wait, are we on the pod now?
Yeah. But you don't have those sort of anxious patterns and stuff that others do. Just
No,
you're just in it.
I've certainly been through anxious patterns in my life, but I mean, I can say wholeheartedly that these days, none at all.
That's amazing.
Like at all. But then I would say like outside of work hours, like I'm just never on my phone anymore. And that was quite
good for you.
intentional.
That's what I mean. It's accidental Buddha over here. So triggering.
I bet
I'm like, I have to stick myself in a
just kind
cabin.
of lost my phone and then I was enlightened.
I have to spend a lot of money to do these things to just not be on my phone. And Chris is like, just don't look at it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh.
Well,
Jesus.
yeah, I don't know.
Eckhart Tolle next to me is he's pretty spot on, isn't he? Okay. So, thank you for sharing your near-death experience with us. I want to get onto the business of Omaze. So, you guys literally give millions away.
So can you tell us the story of how you actually started Omaze?
Yeah. I was a filmmaker
Yeah.
before Omaze. I was doing cause content, like trying to use storytelling to inspire action. And we did a bunch of different projects. We did this thing called the Live Earth concert. If you remember that, it was the biggest concert ever thrown on 7 continents one night. We had a bunch of crazy stars do that. We did a documentary called Girl Rising that was funded by Oprah, Queen Rani of Jordan, and Meryl Streep was narrator. Did all these things. We had Bono and Bill Gates and Beyonce and all these fancy people.
I've heard of some of them.
Huh?
I've heard of some of them.
You've heard of some of them? Exactly.
Yeah.
It's huge name dropping. And we were doing these big projects and just realized that these people authentically wanted to do good, but we weren't doing that much good. We were creating awareness, but we weren't really creating any impact. Felt like it was kind of endemic to the space. So I went to business school and tried to surround myself with new ways of thinking. I'd never even opened Excel before I got to school. I was like purely on the creative side. And then
I still haven't, if it makes you feel better.
yeah, I mean, I haven't opened it since then. And then when I was in school, I went to this event that Magic Johnson, the basketball player, was hosting, where he was auctioning off the chance to play basketball with him and go to a Lakers game. But it was one of those things that was only available to the high net worth individuals in the room. And we were in the room, but not high net worth individuals. We were like the guys who get invited last minute to fill the table and then come for the drinks. And so we sat and watched as the auction went up to 15,000, and Magic was my childhood hero. Like, there's nothing I'd rather do than play basketball with Magic, but I couldn't afford to participate. We were in grad school. And so when we were driving home, we're like, that doesn't make any sense. He has fans around the world, not just in that room. Celebrities weren't really on social media then, but we're like, they're gonna be, and they're gonna be able to reach their fans in a whole new way. So if we make it so anybody can donate $10 for the chance to win, you could raise so much more money, so much more awareness, open up a whole new donor base. So that's where the idea came from initially.
That is very cool.
That was very cool, yeah.
So, I mean,
you almost predicted social media's, ultimate success.
Yeah, I mean, that's a little strong words about it, but we saw that the fans were going to engage.
Did you think mobile was going to be big?
We you know what? People are going to be on their phones.
Yeah.
We're like, I know that because you have one in your hand right now. Except Chris. Yeah.
Okay, so you guys, as a business, you give millions away to charity every single year. So how does the business side of that actually work? Like, how do you make money? How do they make money? How's the whole thing fit together?
Yeah. So the easiest way to think about it is kind of in thirds. So we go buy a house, we then offer it out to people enter, a third of their entries goes to VAT and to charity. 17% of that is charity, 60% is VAT. About a third go to the prizing, so the cost of the house, all the sub prizes. We give people, if they win, £250,000 to move in. We cover all their taxes. We make it so anybody can afford to have the house for at least 5 years. And then the rest is our marketing, operating expenses, and then our profit. So third.
And do you share this all sort of transparently, like everywhere, or is this more just like in the weeds of the information?
No, we're very overt about it.
Yeah.
Like we want, we're an entertainment company. We're not a fundraising company. Like that's what people are buying from us. They want the chance to dream about the house. That's really fun to do. But we have a social purpose. And so we really have always been very like upfront. Like, we are for profit. We believe, you're often told that you have to choose between making money and helping people. And we think that's a false choice.
Yeah. It was a couple of years ago, but I was 4 a.m. with my daughter who wasn't sleeping, watching TV, and an Omaze ad came on. And let me just say, I'm still angry with you that I didn't win that incredible house in the Cotswolds.
I'm sorry about
but
that.
That was a great, for your target customer. Yeah. I was sitting there watching this unbelievable ad suck me in with this incredible life that wasn't like right now. And I was like, fucking just need to go to sleep. And I was like, I wonder if this is like if I'm the perfect type of customer, like a sleep deprived parent who's like, that could be me.
Yeah, we have a persona up on our
wall. Right. I felt like it at the time, and I was like, this is totally working on me. I'm all in.
Can I understand the size and scope of these things? So like, what's an ordinary buy-in? What's an ordinary house worth? Just to get a sense of like
the ordinary, like how much do people contribute?
I mean, the house that I wanted to, that I played to buy was like unreal. It was like a few million quid for sure. Beautiful.
We have a house.
Is that standard or do they change?
Yeah. They're anywhere from 3 to 6.
Oh,
wow. The one we're doing now, we built actually.
Oh, that's cool.
In the Lake District. We're really proud of our team. Yeah. Our Anushka, who runs our property and partnerships, like, she got this house built on time, under budget, and it's amazing.
That's
we couldn't find, we know what our community likes, and it was really hard to find that in the Lake District, so we built it, which is cool. It was a big deal for us.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah, we're really excited.
Because just to be clear, to basically serve your community, you basically change your model enough around, like, as a team to build a property that you're just going to put and advertise and give away anyway.
Yeah. Yes, but it's like it's going to be someone's dream house.
That's
you
so
know?
cool.
So what does someone contribute to get the chance to get their dream house?
So the lowest is 10 pounds.
10
the average
pounds.
person puts in 18, like the average. You know,
really?
The vast majority of our winners are under 20 pounds.
Wow. £20 entry and you can win a pre-built, as in purpose-built house.
Yeah, on the Lake District. It's amazing.
Wow.
Do you guys get to stay in them before you give them away?
No.
That's ridiculous.
I know.
Why?
I don't know. It's just, we're moving. We do a house a month. So like the team is moving so fast.
Yeah, I
And
guess.
there's constantly, you know, they're on to produce the next house and design the next house and all that stuff. So we just like we don't have time to do
God,
it.
that is really like truly life-changing if you won that.
So cool. Do you guys have investors?
Yeah.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about that.
We raised venture capital at the very beginning when we were doing celebrities. So we just did celebrities for 7 years. That was all it was. It wasn't until after my near-death experience that we switched to prizes. And so we raised money for that model, which was just not as, it was tough because you're constantly having to get, you know, the Pope or Arnold Schwarzenegger or Messi or whatever, like try to do stuff.
The Pope, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Messi, whatever.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
I know. I'm such a name dropper. It's
That's
sad.
insane. Sorry.
Tell us about the Pope.
Yeah, we're both interested in the same thing.
So this was a very wild and inspiring story for us. So there was this girl, her name was Chloe. She was 15 years old, living in Northern California. And Chloe was born with a clubbed foot. And she went to high school, and this group of mean girls started picking on her. And one day they pinned her down on the lunch table in front of the whole school during lunch, and like 6 girls held her down and pulled off her shoe to show the school like what that foot looks like. It was obviously very traumatizing. And Chloe went home and she locked herself in her room, and her dad, this guy Dane, who's like a lovely person, was really worried. He didn't know what to do, and he's a huge U2 fan. So he shares with her like some of his favorite songs, and she gravitates to this song called Invisible, which basically is this anthemic song that says like, you can't see me, but I'm here. And she starts listening to it on loop every single day. Let's all come back to the Pope. And it helps her get through what she was going through. And then at the same time, her dad had entered to meet Bono backstage at a concert to benefit his charity, Red. And he won randomly. And so we're like 5 people at the time. So I have to go to these experiences and like make sure it happens. So I get there. I don't know any of this. I'm there and I'm in a very small room, like half this size, with Dane, Chloe, and this red guitar, which was part of the prize for the charity Red. And we're just sitting there, and I can tell like something's going on with her, but I don't know any of the story. So then Bono comes in. He's like full of light, the most charismatic person that you've ever met, you know. And he shakes Dane's hand. He's like, "Tell me your story." And he's like, "Look, I'm your biggest fan. Your music has been the soundtrack to my life, but this is about my daughter Chloe's story." And so he turns to Chloe and he says, "What's your story, Chloe?" And she said, "Well, I was assaulted, and your song Invisible helped me get through it." He said, "You were insulted? Like they called you names?" And she goes, "No, I was assaulted." And you could tell, like, the way she said it, something very serious had happened. He's obviously a very emotionally intelligent guy. And he turns to her and he says, "Well, how did Invisible help you?" And she said, "It gave me the strength to stand up for myself. It gave me the strength to stand up to these girls who did this to me. It gave me the strength to stand up to my school for letting this happen." And he says, "You know why you're able to do that, right? Because of the arc of the universe bends towards justice and love. And when you have right on your side, it's like this big fist, not to hurt people, but to fight for what's right." And you could see her in this moment taking this in. And he says, "What's your passion, Chloe?" And all of a sudden she kind of gets embarrassed again. And he says, she's like, "I don't know. I haven't figured it out." He goes, "That's okay. We have a prayer in my family. And we're not a righteous family. We say this prayer in church, but we also say this prayer in the pub. But the prayer is, I'm available for work." He said, "Make yourself available for work and your passion will be revealed to you." And I've never seen a moment like this in my life. You could literally see this girl transforming before your eyes. Like obviously Bono can say this stuff much more poetically than I can, but it was magic. I was watching magic happen. She leaves that room, she goes home, and she decides she's going to start telling this story to other girls who've been bullied. Another mom hears about it, asks to come to her school where there's girls been bullied, another school. She keeps getting asked to come and speak to other girls. Finally, they start to turn this into a movement called Stand Beautiful. She gets invited to do a TEDx talk. She goes and does the TEDx talk. There's a publisher from Penguin Random House there. She gets a book deal. She starts traveling around the world, helping girls like stand beautiful, embrace their differences. She's doing a speech in Ghana. And this guy named Cardinal Turkson, who's like the number 2 to Pope Francis, hears the speech and goes up to her afterwards and says, hey, can you introduce me to the Omaze thing? Like, I want to do an experience with Pope Francis. So then she reaches out to me and says, can I connect you with Pope Francis's team? And I was like, sure. Yeah, okay. So then I had to go to the Vatican and pitch Pope Francis on why he should do an experience with Omaze.
What was the Pope Francis experience?
Win a Lamborghini where he hands you the keys.
Were you just like, what's something else Italian?
I know. No, that was coincidental because
pizza and a Lamborghini. We'll do the Lamborghini.
I can't believe they went for it as well.
It was so random. That's random.
So random.
Yeah, well, because the way that happened was Lamborghini made this special car for Pope Francis, and then they auctioned
it. What, the Pope-mobile?
No, it wasn't a Pope-mobile. It's actually
who does make the Pope-mobile? Is that made by Lamborghini?
No, Fiat.
Oh, it's Fiat. Okay, fine.
And that was our original idea, is like riding the Pope-mobile.
Yeah.
And then it was so crazy.
That would have been much more like, it makes sense.
Yeah, it was like more on brand for sure.
Security compliance is one of those things that can silently derail your business. Not because it's impossible, but because most of us put it off until it becomes urgent. And by then, it's often too late. I want to tell you about Vanta because it fundamentally changed how our company handles compliance. They've built a system that automates preparing for SOC 2 and ISO 27001 certification, turning what used to be months of tedious work into a straightforward process. What makes Vanta different is that they understand this isn't just about checking boxes. It's about building trust with your customers while protecting your business. That's why over 8,000 companies, from 2-person startups to major enterprises, rely on their platform. If you're growing your business and you know security compliance is something you need to address, visit vanta.com/secret leaders. They're offering $1,000 off your first year, and honestly, it's worth every penny just for the peace of mind. It's the solution you wish you'd found years ago. Use Vanta so you don't get slowed down by security paperwork and focus on what matters, growing your business. Visit vanta.com/secret leaders now and get $1,000 off your first year.
What happened was they made this car, they auctioned it, and this guy bid 700,000 euros for it, and then he backed out. And then Lamborghini called a guy who worked with us who like had relationships in the cars. They're like, hey, can you sell this to one of your high-end donors? And he's like, that's literally the exact opposite of what we do. We like people put in $10 for the chance to win. And they're like, well, yeah, we can't tell the Vatican about this, so if you can hide it from them, then like we can make you do it. And I was like, we're not hiding anything from the Vatican. Like that's not a good strategy.
Yeah.
But I randomly am going to meet Pope Francis, like
by chance.
By chance, like I can ask, like, we'll buy it if he'll promise to give it away. And that's what happened.
That is fantastic.
Yeah. That's
wow.
Wild.
Is that your favorite Omaze story?
I'm quite interested to hear about the Messi story though, because like getting to Messi must be as hard as getting to the Pope.
Well, I don't know about that.
I don't know.
Getting to the Pope?
Have you seen Messi's bodyguard?
Yeah, for sure. But
the guy who's like famous.
Yeah. We did one with Ronaldo too, where you got to get your haircut with Ronaldo. And he had also agreed to like sign shirts as like a donor reward. If like you donated more, you got like a signed Ronaldo thing. And then we finished. He didn't want to do it. And we're like, shit, like we have all these shirts that like we promised to people, and he didn't want to do it. And my buddy who was with me was like, we did this with Kobe, and he was able to sign 200 shirts in 15 minutes. It's a record. He's like, really?
Oh, amazing.
so he just all he wanted to do was know that he could beat Kobe Bryant.
Amazing.
So we got him to do it.
Genius, by the way. Your
Yeah,
friend's
all
a
about the
genius.
character as well.
Yeah, that's so good.
Yeah.
Brutally competitive.
How'd you get to Messi then? Is that a good
Same
story?
thing through charity. Like always, it's always like through like these guys care a lot about their causes. So we would always just go to their charity and say, hey, instead of him meeting one high-end donor, you could make it so anybody can meet him. It's a marketing opportunity. You can get the word out, you know. So we would do it like be in Star Wars and do it with Disney, so you could be in the movie, and it was a marketing thing. And so it was always through their charity and just kind of hustling.
What's your favorite Omaze story?
That one's pretty good because Chloe, like that was just it was a moment of transformation. I'm trying to think of.
Well, before you do that, actually, Chris did ask about Messi. Go on.
He was great. Like they were, he was kind of a shy guy a little bit, like you see.
He seemed so nice.
But he was super
does.
friendly, like super engaging, like very present.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
What does someone like pay to get the opportunity to, you know, engage with Messi?
It's $10.
Just $10.
It's a random. It was a
Wow.
Yeah.
Bet
Yeah. That
did-
winner was $10.
I bet that one went like a big
Yes, that was a big one.
bang.
Yeah. Yeah. We've had a lot of that. That was a popular one.
I'm not even into football, but like I just know the way that people think about football is like a religion.
Oh, for
almost,
sure.
you know.
It is religion.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, there's a lot of overlap between Pope Francis. That was one we sent someone to space with Richard Branson. That was crazy. It's his mother won, and
Christ, that's very nice of Richard Branson because you can't get out of that. It was just a lot of time you're spending in a capsule with someone.
Yeah, good marketing for, well, it's gone under now, hasn't it?
Virgin
Galactic,
Galactic.
yeah.
But good marketing for that.
It
Probably.
was at the time. Yeah, his mother won, and she brought her daughter, so their first mother-daughter combo in space, which was
Amazing.
pretty crazy.
Unreal.
But I suppose before you did all these crazy things, you had to obviously originally have the idea, which turned out to be a brilliant one. But before you had these like crazy names and so forth, like how did you convince investors to go for it? Like I'm just trying to think about the pitch because you're like, okay, we're gonna like give away all this stuff, but like we're gonna get all these amazing contacts. Like, was there quite a lot of like hope and prayer?
There was.
Yeah.
There was. You know, I think the most underrated skill in entrepreneurship is storytelling. I mean, you guys are both storytellers, right? Like you told a story with your bottle, like you understood like a psychology.
He's been talking about heights.
Yeah.
Okay,
Sorry,
But, yeah.
I took my moment.
Yeah. But like I think we really understood how to craft the story to investors. And I think they could see that we cared a lot about this. And even though we were wholly unqualified to do it, that like we were really passionate. And then we were able to, Obama had just done something with George Clooney where he'd raised like 8 million doing this in a night. And we're like, see, look how great this can be. We can do that, you know, and we could show how it scaled out. And that was, you know, and that was basically, we're like, this could be really big.
I suppose the key insight for you from your background was like the kind of the fusing of entertainment and effectively like odds based.
Yeah. And the recognizing that like we were in a whole new world with social.
Were you first to do that? Were you like the first player?
To do like talent based,
like entertainment based experience with?
We were in that model. There was a company that was doing auctions where one wealthy person could pay online to like meet these people. But we were the first to make it available for anybody to have that experience.
Wow.
Yeah.
Phenomenal.
How much did you raise?
For what?
As in just in general from investors, how much have you raised so far?
From investors, we've raised 110 million.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I guess you hear the story and it's so exciting because it's full of amazing stories, most importantly, right? Like makes you the most interesting person in any room because you just have a collection of these phenomenal stories.
It's like inherently viral.
Yeah, it's inherently viral. It's totally fascinating. It plays into every personal fascination or curiosity someone could have when they meet someone. And, you know, it's in the land of go hard or go home, USA. So you've got the celebrities, you've got the venture capital, you've got this like really exciting model. And yet here you are in the UK and you're doing homes. I guess I'm wondering what moment would stop like the fascination, you know, something I guess has to happen for you to be like, that's actually probably not the model for us. It's this over here because you must have been loving that. The opportunity to meet all these incredible people, as incredible as what you do now, which is with homes, you're not going to meet the Pope doing that, right? So like on a personal level, as a human being, there's actually a big sacrifice moving from one model to the other about what kind of interesting turns your life could take.
Yeah, it's a great question. It was the near-death experience. So when I was leaving in the hospital, a couple weeks later, the doctor sat down at the edge of my bed and he said, look, when I finish my career 30 years from now, and I'm talking about the most extraordinary case I've ever seen, this is going to be it.
Wow.
6 months before I went into the hospital, we had done this campaign with Daniel Craig where you got to go to New York, you got to go to the Aston Martin track.
Bond.
Yeah, with Bond. You got to ride around in a one-of-a-kind.
May I just say how insulting it is you did that in New York, but whatever. Back to your story.
That's where he wanted to do it.
Sure.
Yeah. You got to ride around in a one-of-a-kind Aston Martin, and then you got to keep the Aston Martin. And it was supposed to raise $300,000 for the United Nations, and it raised $2.1 million.
Wow.
So then I went to our CFO, her name was Nina, and said, hey, I think we should buy a $250,000 McLaren, but do it with just Omaze, no talent. And if we could raise $500,000 on our own, like that would change everything. And it was a big bet for us. We only had $900,000 in the bank at that point.
Right.
So, but she agreed to do it. And then that car coincidentally launched the day before I unexpectedly went into the hospital.
Wow.
So when I came back all those months later, and I was sitting down with her, and I said, by the way, like whatever happened with the McLaren, did we raise the 500,000? And she said it raised 1.9 million. And I was like, that changes everything. And then I went to the board and the team. I was like, look, we'll be able to control our supply, raise more, like way bigger leverage. We can do cars and holidays and watches, and one day we'll do houses. And so that's how it came. So that's how I pitched it more of that element.
Yeah.
It's really interesting, isn't it? Because there is an aspect of working with celebrities, especially at the level you're talking about as well, really challenging because they're human beings. They've got teams around them, they've got shoot schedules, all of this stuff, and then they can also just get sick. And so how can you really genuinely control, like you say, your supply and therefore your size of how hard and big you can go? It's impossible versus commodities. Where obviously a car, a house, you can always go bigger. You can always dream bigger and be more imaginative about it. And then I suppose the other side of it is you've got the classic question of what's more meaningful to someone. Is it an incredible life-changing experience, or is it like actually giving them a home to live in?
Yeah.
What was
the craziest one we ever had, like to your point about like not being able to control, is we were supposed to do this big campaign with Arnold Schwarzenegger. We had this whole shoot day set with him, and it was going to be this like crazy prank where you thought you were doing your driver's test, and he was like, Arnold was the
instructor.
Driver. Yeah, instructor. And then
is he known for driving? I mean, what's the
irrelevant, mate? You'd be so excited.
Yeah, we had done a bunch of viral. We had done
some
a bunch of videos with it, and we did like one where
so good if it was in a Mini.
I know, right? Yeah, it was going to be in a Hummer, but we did one with him. The wax museums.
Yeah,
like we had him actually stand there, and then people came up, and he was like, he said hello, and like they lost their mind, and that went like super. So we had done a bunch of stuff with him.
I think I've seen that actually.
Yeah. That one's big.
Yeah.
We did like riding a tank with him and crush things, and we showed you what it was like to ride in a tank with Arnold. Anyway, we were going to do this thing, and it was going to be a meaningful part of our sales. And then the morning of, his guy calls. He's like, sorry, Arnold can't do the shoot today. We'd invested all this money in it. And I was like, why? He's like, he's getting his haircut with Sylvester Stallone.
Right.
And I was like, what? No, like if they're ever in town, they got to get their haircut together, and he's in town. And I was like,
this thing I've ever
where's your Sylvester Stallone insurance?
Yeah, I know. I was like,
they should have done it together.
I know. I was like, can we do that? Can we make it this? We'll go there and film. And they're like, no. So that like we missed like our month.
Yeah.
Arnold and Sylvester Stallone were getting their haircut together.
That, I suppose that's probably also like indicative of that business model. Like, what were the other really difficult celebrity experiences? Because I used to do a lot of work with celebrities in my previous company, and they just like influencer and celebrity, they just ended up being fundamentally very unreliable.
Yeah, it's challenging. We just had a shoot last week with a celebrity, and she had to pull out because she pulled her shoulder.
And like we know it from running.
Couldn't do the shoot.
Yeah, we know it from running podcasts. Like the amount of people who don't show up like on the day,
and they're like, sick or this happened.
Absolute emergency that you can't argue. It's like when you're at school And like, if you're like a few minutes late, you're like, oh yeah, no, it was traffic. But if you're like 10 minutes late, you're like, oh, it was something kind of important. But if you're going to be half an hour late, it's like someone's died, like someone has died. And I feel like whenever someone can't make a podcast, the reason is so severe, but it happens so regularly that you're like, I don't know.
Or we're just bad luck chumps.
Yeah, exactly. Like, otherwise we're
There's
so unlucky.
many people dying.
But like, I think from a celebrity, like what was the most difficult celebrity experience outside of Arnold and Sylvester?
I mean, I have to say Arnold was amazing to work with. Like he was so fun. I'll come to your question, but there's one where we were doing the filming with Arnold in this tank, and he was driving around like crushing things. It was the tank that he used to drive in the Austrian army, and
that's so cool.
Yeah, and so we were doing the filming, and we just needed to get like a half hour of him driving it to cut it, and then we are gonna have someone else do the rest of the stunts. And so I text the guy that's in the front seat with Arnold saying, "Hey, like we got it with Arnold. He can leave." And he types back, Arnold says he likes crushing things. And so we just stayed around and drove over stuff for like
off camera.
Yeah, for like hours.
Arnold just crushing
shit. Honestly, like I don't have like. I think we got the best of people because of what they were doing. Like we didn't have any.
Yeah, because it's related to their causes.
Yeah, like I think look, they're pulled in a million directions. Like they're normal people. They are like with extraordinary jobs.
Yeah.
And so and they, the bigger they are, the more pulled around that they get, the more like just like the amount of things that are huge coming their way every single day. It just makes it difficult. Yeah.
Before we sort of go on to the I suppose the business and how it works in more detail, like obviously you pivoted away from that model, but what was the most viral moment that you had
in the celebrity model?
In the celebrity model, like what was the thing that like really put you on the map?
The thing that put us on the map was Breaking Bad.
Oh, really?
Did you guys ever watch that show?
Yeah, I watched all of it.
Yeah,
so many times.
Yeah. Oh, really? Yeah. So that put us on the map. We were almost out of business. We would have been out of business if it weren't for Breaking Bad. We had done like.
As in you were making heroin.
We were making heroin, and they were competing with us.
Yeah,
and
good.
Their heroin was better, and so if you don't have the best product,
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. You know that from. We literally like 2 months of cash left when we got Bryan Cranston to do something.
Is he as fucking cool as he seems?
He's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, he seems
And
so
Aaron Paul
cool.
is so cool. And you got to basically ride in a Winnebago with them to the final episode of Breaking Bad.
Wow.
And cook meth.
Yeah.
And hazmat suits with them.
That's amazing.
And then watch it with the rest of the cast and randomly Warren Buffett. And
Christ alive.
He's in the Winnebago.
He's there, yeah. He's a big Breaking Bad fan. It was all crazy.
I love that your side gift is you get to be with the world's richest
I know,
man.
we didn't even market that. Like we couldn't market that. He just like came.
Is that how Warren Buffett operates? He's like, I want to do thing, and everyone's like, yeah, please do thing with us.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he was just like, I had literally no warning. All of a sudden, he was just there, and I was like,
so
wow,
good.
Yeah.
You sure it was him?
What's that?
You sure it was him, or just some guy who looks similar?
No, I'm positive it was him. I'm positive it was him. That reminds me of a funny story though. I can
definitely
come back to it.
Yeah, we want it. But anyway, go and finish this one.
Yeah. Anyway, so that and you got to, and Bryan Cranston was like, "Hey, we want you guys to make it so the blue smoke is coming out of the thing," and we're like, "Oh man, we don't know how to do that," but he really wanted it, so we're like, "We'll do whatever he needs," and so we were supposed to get like a permit and all this stuff. We just totally jerry-rigged this thing. And I'm like, fuck, we could blow up this entire Winnebago, but like, this is going to be make or break for us as a company. So we just figured it out, and they pulled up and the smoke came out, and it was awesome.
That's so cool.
Yeah. But it proved the model because they had done something similar in an auction, and it had raised $40,000 for the charity. And with us, it raised $1.7 million.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so great.
Yeah.
And so they went to the filming of the last episode of Breaking Bad.
No, to watch the last episode.
It, right?
Yeah, would be and like.
Is that the one with the machine gun?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because you remember like that was like the last like monoculture moment. Not the last one, but like everybody, because basically it was the first Netflix show.
Because they picked it back up, didn't they?
Yeah,
They
it
didn't start
hadn't done
but
well on AMC, and then they put it on Netflix,
yeah.
and people binged it, and then the whole like everybody
like
was-
TV almost changed afterwards, like
Yeah,
streaming
exactly.
changed.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Wow.
What was the other story that you just remembered?
Oh, do you guys know Travis Kelce is?
Yeah.
The football player.
Yeah.
He's an awesome guy, and we had done something with him, and then he's now dating Taylor Swift,
Yeah.
which makes him super famous, I guess. But we were at a concert, and he's standing there talking to Jimmy Buffett for like a half an hour, and then Jimmy Buffett walks out on stage to like play just like to do a couple songs. It wasn't his concert, but he walks out on stage, and then Travis comes back to me, and he like all of a sudden Jimmy starts playing and goes, "Oh my God, he's amazing. He can really sing." I was like, "Yeah, I know." He's like, "This is." He's the world's richest man, and he can sing like this.
Oh my God, that's unbelievable.
And like he's like, what? Like, and I'm like, that's not Warren Buffett. That's Jimmy Buffett. Dude, I've just been asking him business advice for like the last.
Christ. That is
Jimmy
amazing.
Buffett must have been really confused.
Yeah, well, he was a billionaire too,
but
so,
still.
like, yeah,
That's
it was
amazing.
hilarious.
Okay, all right. We're going to bring you back into the business
Yeah,
side now.
business.
It's just too enjoyable.
Yeah.
It's your fault, really. Okay, what is the psychological trick that you need to get consumers to like sort of buy into to make the whole model essentially work? Because there's a lot of hype that needs to happen,
Yeah.
right, to build up this sort of demand.
I wouldn't. It's really just storytelling. Like it's not necessarily a trick. Like we all want to believe things can change, and that's what we're offering because it can. Right? Like every brand is basically at some level selling
The promised land.
transformation, right? Like
yeah.
Nike's like put a bunch of rubber on your feet and you will transform into an athlete, or Gatorade was like drink this sugar water and you'll transform into Michael Jordan. Like we actually offer, it's real transformation. Like you can win and have a new life. The charities, like, we're raising massive money for this charity. So like that is what we're offering. So and I think people want that, right? And that's exciting, and it's exciting to dream about that. And so that's really, it's just telling that story well.
Do you think the fact that you personally, obviously your previous career, like is so relevant for all of this? It's so interesting because there's that whole everything makes sense looking backwards,
Right.
and obviously you're building this business, but like your actual career history, as a film producer, director, like that is so relevant to this ability to sell not just the story and the dream, but even the moments with the, Breaking Bad, and we want the blue smoke. And it's like, well, if anyone could do that, someone with your background would know how to make that happen in a last minute thing, right? Whereas a typical CEO would not actually. Yeah, they'd be able to make things happen, but this is such relevant expertise.
Totally. And like you said, looking back, it makes sense. But while I was going through, I had no idea this is where it would end up.
Just following your nose.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, but we take storytelling really seriously. Like I teach classes to the company on storytelling. Like we follow like very specific fundamentals in everything we do. Like,
So for the founder watching, if they're to try and understand a bit more about how they do storytelling for their company, what would you say?
there's a book called Building a Story Brand.
That's what I use at Heights.
Do you?
I use the exact framework.
It makes sense.
I use
Like,
the
you
exact
can see
framework,
it.
building a story brand,
Yeah.
7 steps. Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing.
It's all about like, I would read that book. And yeah, that's one of the reasons Heights works, right? Like you can
It's
tell from the
literally
packaging.
step by step.
Yeah.
You'd love it actually, Chris. Yeah.
Tell us the steps.
So
Yeah,
you basically like, you have to, the kind of overall biggest thing is basically that is about understanding the human brain first and foremost, right? And understanding like kind of what we were talking about earlier, the brain is just constantly looking for things to make it survive, right? And so if it has to use a lot of calories to figure something out, then it shuts down, right? So if you almost picture like the brain on a treadmill running, if your message is like confusing, like you're just going to stop, right? So that's like the first thing. If you confuse, you lose, right? So like, how do you make it as simple as possible? Second is make the customer the hero. Too often brands make themselves the hero, and like the customer doesn't care about the brand's benefit. It cares about their own benefit. And right. So it's like, make sure that you frame things in a way that makes the customer the hero. Like a good example of that is Spotify versus Tidal. You guys remember Tidal? That was like Beyonce, Jay-Z.
Yeah, totally. It was all about the celebrities.
Yeah, it was all. It was this streaming platform. The tech was actually as good as Spotify, but they made all the advertisements about them, and like these musicians were bringing you this thing from a mountaintop. Where Spotify is like, here's your Wrapped, you're the hero. Like you are like, so make the customer the hero, and then basically help them participate in their transformation. Like show why whatever you're offering can get them to a different place in their life. And then if you do those things, like it'll.
And you missed a step, which is provide a bit of jeopardy.
Provide a bit, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So you got to basically, you got to demonstrate that there's something at risk.
Yes.
And that you might not get there, but in the storytelling, you can always overcome it.
Yes. Exactly.
It's very like once you've read that book or once you've done StoryBrand and you watch a Pixar movie, you can see every single Pixar movie looks the same.
Yeah. Yeah. And they break down like the fundamentals. Like people don't realize there's a lot of math to a story. Like every single movie script has this, like the inciting incident happens on the same page. Like the irretrievable journey happens on the same page. The moment of doubt and looks like they're not going to come back is page 45. Like it's like every single movie.
I've literally I just did a book deal, and I've just started the process of working with my editor, and they are Mel Robbins' editor. And so we had this like whole thing where like Mel Robbins does so well, and I was asking the question why, and she was saying, well, fundamentally follows an incredibly standard, well-received format for delivering a book. And I was like, tell me more. And she was like, well, all books follow the same format. Fundamentally, the arc is the same, and it's the same thing. You're just telling the story. You're introducing a bit of jeopardy, which is like, if you don't do these things, where will you end up? You're making the person the hero of their own story. And so it's fascinating that most of all marketing is just the same thing.
Yeah. But often it's not told very clearly, and they don't do like it's amazing how much doesn't do it. You know, like how many people don't do it. There's a quote in there where they say, words are to stories as noise is to music. Right? Like music is just a series of noises, but when it's arranged in a certain way, it goes from this thing that could be incredibly stress inducing, which noise can be, to something that like can create emotion, create connection, create memories. It's the same thing with words and stories. Like if you don't organize words in the right way, like it loses all their power.
Yeah.
You said that the correlation between making money and doing good is like a false dichotomy. So what do you mean by that?
We're taught, especially in American society, but I think here too, you're taught that if you want to help people, like first of all, like charity and for-profit should not be the same thing. And like that comes from like basically the Puritan origins of charity in the US was like people came over from here, started making a lot of money in the New World, but their religion taught them that like anything in their self-interest was bad and would send them to hell. And so they didn't want to go to hell, but they didn't want to stop making money. So they created the concept of charity to basically like make it so they don't go to hell.
To wash away their sins.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that was literally where it came from. And so then it came up to our culture. Like we were told at the beginning, you're never going to raise venture money if you give money to charity. Like nobody will ever invest in that. We're like amazing people who run charities are told like they can't be paid their market value. Like they're told they're not allowed to invest in marketing in general. Like we want 100% of the money to go impact. Or they're like, well, if I can make more money by marketing it, isn't that better for the impact? Like, so there's all these like rules that like for whatever reason we've settled on of like how charity should work. And we're fine with, people doing bad in the world, running banks that
or selling oil or whatever.
We can pay them.
So true.
We're totally fine them making.
We don't compare those two things.
Yeah, but if you're doing good, you better not also make money.
Yeah.
You don't get to do both those things. It's like, why?
It's so true. It's like, so I spent years building a social care health tech business with my brother. And it's not a charity, it's a for-profit business that does something great for the world. But the amount of shit you get when you're like in a space that, it's social care, etc. The amount of shit that you get about trying to like do something good and make money is wild. And it's like, look at all the businesses around that are doing nothing good for the world and making
totally
an extraordinary amount of money.
And then even on a consumer side, this is so basic but simple. But like one of my biggest triggers at Heights, the amount of people that will just go after you because you're selling health supplements and tell you that like you're doing all this terrible shit, and they don't bother with alcohol cigarette companies. They just those people don't bother slagging off people that are creating products that are designed to make you worse, designed to hurt you. Those people are nowhere to be seen.
Coca-Cola,
but if you
fine.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
Coca-Cola. I always say Coca-Cola as
Yeah.
an example. You're completely right. I'm like, where are you when they're advertised? It doesn't matter.
Also,
But if you create something that's good for health, they'll just go
Yeah.
after you. It's so
I think it must be
interesting.
that people. It's
Maybe
almost
they're
the
all
Trump- it's
Coca-Cola
almost like
employees.
it's almost like the Trump effect, right? Because he just does whatever he wants. People are like, well, that's fine. Like he wasn't trying to be good.
Yeah,
You know?
sure.
So,
yeah.
yeah, I think it's maybe like they try to sense hypocrisy in companies that are trying to do both, or they think, you know, there's something not upfront about it. I don't know.
I'm going to ask you a question which we were asked a lot, which is like, how do you make your profit? And the reason I ask it is like, we got that question so much, and I always think to myself, like, how often does Coca-Cola get that question?
Totally.
Like, how often does a bank get that question?
never, yeah.
And it's like, what, they're making way more profit
Yeah.
than
And no
we're
one cares.
making.
Everyone
And no
knows
one
expensive
gives a
people.
shit. But they're like,
Yeah.
where are you making your money from? And it's like,
Yeah.
well, we make it from lots of places, but
Yeah.
we provide an excellent service that didn't exist before.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So like, we had to continuously justify ourselves.
yeah, it's
Which I
wild.
imagine is the same with you.
Yeah, we not so much now. At the beginning, we definitely did. You know, like Bono was like, I'm never gonna partner with a company that makes money and also is in the charity space. You know, and then
Which makes sense. Bono is famous, so he makes no money. So
yeah, exactly. But then but then he was amazing, and then he became an investor. You know, like but yeah, I don't know, we had to justify it a lot at the beginning. Now I think, you know, we're just very overt, like this is an entertainment product. That is what we're offering. We will also give a lot of our sales to charity.
Does that annoy you?
Huh?
Does that annoy you that you've had to reposition? You're repositioning yourself from a storytelling point of view, and because it's better for clearing up everything. But does it annoy you that you have to say we're an entertainment company and we give money to charity versus saying actually we're a for good social enterprise, etc.? So like the way that you'd like to ideally position yourself.
No, because I think it is what we are.
Right.
You know, like it's also important for our company to understand, like our team, like the more fun, the more exciting that you make this, the more magic that it has, like the better impact we'll have. But you need to think about that first.
Okay.
So I'm good with it. Because again, that is the product that we.
And presumably then it helps you hiring culturally, internally, like all the stuff. Okay.
Exactly.
Interesting.
Yeah. But I do think this double standard would like to help change that.
I mean,
what you guys have talked about.
yeah,
you know?
and then you move to England. My God.
Yeah,
I mean,
people
we
don't
get just as
celebrate
an-
success here very much.
No, exactly. That's interesting. So what have you found culturally about this dichotomy and this challenge from UK culture versus US culture?
I've heard this, but I haven't experienced it. Like I've
good.
heard people say it. But I've found, you know, most of the people in our company are from the UK, like, and they're like you guys, like driven and like we can do it and like celebratory of success. So like that's my experience. I keep hearing about the tall poppy syndrome, or you're not taught that same thing here. It's harder to be an entrepreneur, but I haven't experienced it.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. We'll keep you away from it then.
Yeah.
I mean, I moved after doing the health company to effectively helping entrepreneurs build better businesses. So like fundamentally like coaching, I suppose. Yeah. And the amount of shit that I have got since doing that as well is wild.
Really?
Yeah.
In what
Just about
sense?
like sell out, scam artists, con artists. And I find it
For helping entrepreneurs.
yeah.
But do you think that's because you do a course?
'cause I
versus
do
if
it
it's all
online.
coaching? I reckon if it's all coaching, do you know, there's probably like there's a thing, isn't there? Like people seem to be accepting of coaches and not accepting of courses.
Or group coaching.
Or do you
that-
don't think
'cause-
they're accepting of group coaching?
Well, that's fundamentally what I do, right?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, like this, you know, there's some like wrap around it, but fundamentally, I coach people in groups to at a fundamental level, like achieve their potential. And there's a lot of stuff about marketing is often the thing that's the thread. But yeah, the amount of shit I've got is crazy. And yeah, in some ways, I've had to, a bit like my new, you know, Zenness, I've had to be like, whatever.
You and I wouldn't
Yeah.
survive a moment with this,
You know?
Matthew. Chris is like, I got loads of shit today. Just relaxing with it. I'd be like, I'm a nervous wreck and I'm not getting out of bed. Someone was mean to me on the internet.
I took a view of like not looking at the comments of anything recently, and again,
Unbelievable.
like
Imagine again, Buddha.
super free.
Imagine not looking at comments, having that kind of discipline.
Yeah, so like no news, no comments, no like TV really.
Our brains aren't set up to take in this much stimuli.
No, totally.
I do really
Positive or
believe that.
negative?
Yeah, I
No,
do
it's
really,
just
really
like
believe
we're-
that.
Oh, it's the truth. Like,
Yeah.
we're, like we went from like 13 on the food chain to number 1 and like way faster than evolution wanted us to. And so now we have like, we get the same stress from like the saber-toothed tiger coming that we do from like the
Yeah,
comments
the
or
stress
whatever.
responses.
Yeah,
totally.
So our brain is not sure how to differentiate. It's like, that's why you got to do that. Like,
That's so funny. As in if people had more, like actual existential threats in their life, the other stuff that bothers them today wouldn't bother them.
absolutely. I mean, you look at the people who've had severe adversity are the happiest in the world. Like you can't, like you literally like can't get to levels of happiness and gratitude without trauma.
Totally.
Yeah.
I mean, and your story is a really good example of that. And fundamentally, story brand, right? But
Yeah.
like, story brand, but genuinely on a human level. You find this
Right.
so often when you understand our job is interviewing entrepreneurs. They all have not
Yeah,
near-death
yeah.
experiences, but you have the the absolute worst thing in your life, and then the
Yes.
recovery afterwards. It's so common. And
I would also say like the zenness that I feel, I would say it's because for a few years I feel like I was going through a real version of trauma.
yeah,
And then when that cleared up, I felt like everything else was by a great magnitude of order like less important.
Do you guys know Jonathan Haidt?
yeah. I mean, I'm obsessed with that book.
Yeah.
Anxious Generation.
His first book was called The Happiness Hypothesis.
Yeah, I read it. Yeah.
Have you?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he talks about in that like it's literally impossible to feel that zenness that you experience without the stress or the
Yep.
trauma before. Like you just can't get there. So you almost want to seek experiences that will make.
We say
create
this is so
discomfort.
interesting though, because it's hard to say that to like, a normal person. Like, go seek something painful. A good example is though, when people do like Tough Mudder or High Rocks or like marathons or whatever, is a good example of putting your body through physical stress, and you come through like that as a form of adversity at the end of the day. But a great training ground for any of this stuff is just entrepreneurship, because you do just
and
get
also-
smashed
also,
in the
like,
face all
you're-
the time.
It's literally what it
You're
is. You're just
guaranteed.
taking punches.
So you're guaranteed
Yeah.
for some trauma.
Yeah.
The best advice I think across all our interviews ever is like take action and life will just reveal itself.
Yeah.
And I feel like whether it's entrepreneurship or taking on something else in your life,
momentum.
those things lead to like micro versions of trauma and challenge all the time, and that your life and character are revealed in those moments. And it's quite hard when people are. I feel like people are terrified of life these days.
Yes.
Of revealing themselves to life, and so you have to start people small on the journey to take more action in their lives, because you will find so much more fun in all the crazy shit that happens to you.
Right.
You were obviously a filmmaker, and the early incarnation of Omaze is in a sort of celebrity theatrical kind of dynamic world, and it sounds like something you're really, really passionate about. This feels to me to be the evolution of it, more purposeful. And there's that idea that your passion is something you do for yourself, and your purpose is something that you do for others. Do you feel like you're living your purpose now, or do you think there's another business in you after Omaze, or is this like you're just
I hope I
fulfilled?
get to do this the rest of my life.
Yeah.
I really
Wow.
do. That
That's
would be
so
my
great to
dream.
hear.
That I'm like continue to be good enough at the job to warrant it. I really, this feels both like my business, but also my art. And there's so much more we have coming that like we'll hopefully get to be able to express that even more. But no, I'm incredibly grateful that it even works.
Yeah.
It's an amazing model.
Yeah.
I mean, is there any challenges of the fact that you might not have started the business in such a mindset that you have investors and all the rest of it? Can this be a lifelong business / passion, or like do you have any baggage from the fact that the company's like quite old and you've got investors and so forth?
I think we can still exit in ways that can get them their money back. I think that's a big opportunity. Like we have a chance to be a really big business.
I definitely think that. I more meant like would you ever try and buy the investors out? Would you, like, is this a long term business for you?
I hope it's a long term, but we could go public. There's other ways to, I think that's on the path for us. And then hopefully I'm good enough at running a public company that I can still keep the job.
Yeah.
So that's a very obvious way for us to do it and to get the investors. Our investors have been amazing. They've been with us for a long time, very patient. So I'd be very excited for them to do very well, and we want that for the team and everything too. But my dream is that we do that, and then I can keep running it.
Well, I can sincerely say that I believe that you can.
Yeah,
Hope that you do. And just thank you for your time, because it's been such an inspiring, one of my favorite stories ever had on the show. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you guys.
And he's been doing it for 7 years.
Yeah.
Really?
This is one of the best.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Amazing.
I mean, I've been doing it for about 6 months, and I would say the same thing, but it's less meaningful.
And I think the last one was better. I've had 7 better than this.
Yeah. And you're like number 10.
Yeah,
You're like number
exactly.
10.
I've done 10, and you're, I guess, 10.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well,
thank you guys. This is amazing.
Yeah, I loved it.
You guys
Thank
are
you.
awesome at this.
Yeah. Thanks
This
very
is a
much
lot
for
of
coming
fun.
on.
Yeah, thank you for putting out your wisdom in the world and inspiring others to do this. It's really cool.
And Zen Boy here.
And Zen Boy.
There we go.